Hello, my name's Hallis Carey, and on this beautiful afternoon, with geese frolicking in the background and flowers blooming, I'm bringing you another Inside Edition on Native American assimilation. Here we have one of the many leaders of our local Chippewa tribe. Can you tell us your name?
Of course, Alice. My name is Rohan Lungani.
So Rohan, you're quite the prestigious Native American, with several books written on Native American assimilation, correct?
That is very true, Alice. I've written many books on Native American assimilation, as well as many podcasts that can be shown on the screen here.
So, moving on, what can you tell us about Native American assimilation?
Well, that's a broad topic there, Alice, but I'll try to start at the beginning. Many of the Native Americans in the East had been driven out in the Trans-Missouri West and lived there. However, with the advancing white pioneers, it was inevitable that conflict between the whites and the Indians would occur again.
So, I assume with the whites driving off Native Americans in the East, many of them moved over to the West, Rohan?
Yes, precisely, Alice. And many of them migrated and adapted to the culture and nomadic lifestyle of the plains.
Were there any attempts of peace with the Native Americans, Rohan?
In fact, Alice, there were. In 1851, the federal government tried to pacify the Plains Indians by signing treaties with chiefs of various tribes at Fort Laramie and Fort Atkinson in 1853.
So, Rohan, what exactly was the significance of these treaties?
What a fine question, Alice. These treaties marked the beginning of the reservation system in the West. They established boundaries for the territory of each tribe and attempted to separate Indians into two great colonies, to the north and south of a corridor of intended white settlement.
Let me guess, Rohan, something went wrong?
Alice, you're right. The white treaty makers often misunderstood both Indian government and Indian society.
Really?
Tribes and chiefs were often fictions of the white imagination, which couldn't grasp the fact that Indians usually recognize no authority outside their immediate family, or perhaps a village elder. In addition, the nomadic culture of the Plains Indians was alien to the concept of living out of one's life in the confinement of a defined territory.
Wow, interesting. This topic really tickles my brain, Rohan. Could you please tell me more?
Alice, of course. The government soon intensified the policies and forced Native Americans to be confined to small itty-bitty territories.
Interesting. So they forced them to move to confined territories, Rohan?
Yes.
Huh. I would assume their treatment was less than they expected, Rohan?
It was.
Really?
Many of the tribes living in these territories were given spoiled food, little clothing, terrible living conditions, and the overall system was just corrupt. Meanwhile, the battle between the Native Americans and the whites was raging on in the West, with warfare between the two forming tensions. Along with the fighting came many other factors, such as the whites attempting to culturally convert the Native Americans.
How so, Rohan?
Good question, Alice. The whites banned some of the traditional Native American dances adopted, such as the sun dance. Schools were set up for children to teach them white customs and culture. Native American cults were formed, such as the ghost dance cult, but were eventually stamped out in the Battle of the Wounded Knee.
So, would you say that these battles directly led to the Dawes Act of 1887? That was the act that dissolved many tribes as legal entities, wiped out tribal ownership of land, and set up individual Indian family heads with 160 free acres. It struck at tribal organization and ignored the inherent reliance of traditional Indian culture and tribally held land.
Correct, Alice. Reservation land not allotted to the Indians under the Dawes Act was to be sold to railroads and white settlers, with the proceeds used by the federal government to educate the native peoples.
Interesting, Rohan. Is there anything else you can tell me about the Dawes Act?
Sure. The Dawes Act struck directly at the tribal organization and tried to make rugged individualists out of the Indians. This legislation ignored the inherent reliance of traditional Indian culture on tribally held land. By 1900, Indians had lost nearly 50%
Oh my God, that's a lot of land.
of their
Rohan.
land. That's insane.
a lot of
Dude,
land.
that's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I understand that the forced assimilation doctrine of the Dawes Act remained the cornerstone of government's official Indian policy for nearly half a century, until the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934.
Yes, Alice. Under these new federal policies, the Indian population started to mount slowly.
Well, Rohan, I can't tell you how much of a pleasure it was having you here.
Mr. Carrick, the pleasure was all mine.
Now, would you say that I would be considered, finally, a Native American? Thank you, Rohan, for that hat.
No problem, dude.
Wait here while I make a call to my neighbor.
Okay.
This has been another Nightly News with Hallis Carrick. Please stay tuned for next time when we discuss, was the Cold War really cold? This is Hallis Carrick reporting out.
Bye, guys. Well, that's a pretty broad topic there, Hallis, but I'll try to start at the beginning. Many of the Native Americans in the East had been driven out and lived in the... Oh, God. Well, that's a broad topic there. Well, that's a broad topic there. Well, that's a broad topic. Tribes and chiefs were often fictions of the white imagination,
Wow.
who couldn't grasp the fact... Yes, Alice. Many of... Correct, Alice.